Welcome to the Talented Learning Show podcast series, episode 89 with independent learning tech analyst John Lay. Today I interview John Findlay, CEO of LemonadeLXP, about the finance industry and tackling digital adoption for employees, partners, and customers. You can find more of our fiercely independent content at talentedlearning.com. Well, welcome back, listeners, to the Talented Learning Show podcast. On this show, I'm fortunate to interview the world's leading experts in learning solutions from both the vendor and the practitioner perspectives. And today's no different. On the vendor expert side of the fence, I'm absolutely thrilled to have John here to talk about the challenges and solutions that financial organizations, credit unions, and fintech software companies are having, and a lot of times in common, the same problems. Listeners, all of us, we all use online digital banking products to manage our money. Or we should, from account management to transferring funds, card payments, mobile wallets, peer-to-peer payments, investments, and much, much more. Even in my small town bank, it feels like products and services are always changing and being updated. And getting me proficient in using those tools is a goal of even my small town bank and all banks and financial institutions around. And add to that the normal compliance challenges and onboarding challenges. And financial institutions really have some of the most complex and integrated extended enterprise learning challenges of serving all the audiences at once and trying to do that holistically. But why is this digital product adoption important? What are the specific challenges financial organizations face? How can they resolve those challenges holistically and think about all these audiences at the same time? And what do they get? What do they achieve it if they're able to do it? Well, that's what we're going to learn all about today. John, welcome to the Talented Learning Show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, John. It's a thrill to be on. So looking forward to our chat.
Me too. And so, audience, this is going to be great because we haven't talked about anything like this on 89 episodes. So we're going to dig into completely new territory. But before we get there, why don't we start at the beginning like we always do? John, tell us about LemonadeLXP. Tell us about your company, what it is that you do, and why you founded it. We'll start off there, and then we'll start digging into the financial industry.
Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of a story here.
All right.
So Lemonade is a spin-off of a company I started way back in 1999 called Launchfire. We were the first guys doing digital gamification. Before it was a word, we were building what we called gamified promotions. So they were microsites with games and contests designed to educate consumers and get them to buy stuff. We worked with many of the world's leading brands, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Time Warner, Dell, Intel, Microsoft, you name it. We worked with all the big guys. So we had a ton of data points on game-based tactics that were effective. Fast forward to 2005, we're working with the Tylenol brand on a promotion for their new rapid release pill. Sales manager plays the promotional game and says, what a cool way to educate. Could you morph this into an e-learning program? And we're like, I guess we could. So we did it, and it turned out to be the top training program they'd ever run. I think we may have built the first game-based e-learning course. At any rate, it was novel enough that we got written up in a couple of training publications. After that, we did everything we could to ignore the business. But despite our utter neglect and our worst marketing efforts, we kept getting a trickle of customers from those articles. We worked with like JetBlue, Dell, a couple others, and we built game-based learning programs. Still did everything we could to ignore it because the promotions business was doing well. Then in 2015, we were working with MBNA on their college campus promotion, and they got acquired by TD. So our contact became the head of digital for TD USA. And he called us and said, you know what? Our challenge is that our customers aren't using our digital channels, our online and mobile banking at the rates we'd like them to. What can you guys do? Well, the first thing we recommended was don't run a promotion because that reaches a national audience, most of whom aren't your customers and don't care about your tech. But the folks who aren't using it, where are they? They're coming into your branches, calling your contact centers. So just get your front line to promote the technology. And he laughed and said, our staff aren't mandated to bank with us, which we've since learned is the case at the vast majority of financial institutions in the United States. So if staff don't bank with you, they don't use the tech themselves. If they don't use it, how the heck are they going to recommend it to customers? They don't want to say, hey, you should try our mobile deposit. Then the customer says, how does it work? Actually, I have no idea. So if they don't have knowledge and confidence in the products, they're not going to recommend them. And that's the number one way to drive adoption. So we said, you have a training problem. And we happen to do this game-based learning off the back of the truck. You want to try a pilot? He said, sure. We ran a pilot. We increased digital rock. We increased digital product recommendations from frontline staff by a multiple X factor. And then TD said, we want to roll this out more broadly. At that point, we were like, we need to build a platform, because in that journey with TD, we realized that every financial institution had this problem. So from that, we built a learning experience platform that's specifically designed to teach tech. And we built a digital adoption platform, or really a customer education platform, that's the fastest way in the world to create walkthroughs of any software app so that you can promote it to customers, and you can also support your staff when they need to support customers. So those two pieces made us what we call the digital growth platform, because it's really what it was about. But of course, our customers started looking and, well, we want to use this for compliance. We want to use it for new staff onboarding. We want to use it to teach on mortgage. We want to create universal tellers. We want to build diversity and inclusion training on that, financial wellness, financial literacy. And so it is blown into what I would call an AI-powered education platform for financial institutions that allows them to educate staff and customers. We recently brought a product to market at the end of last year that allows you to now generate the content in an instant using AI. So that's kind of where we're at. We work with, coming up, we're going to be up close to 100 financial institutions in the next month or two. Growth has been pretty strong. So yeah, it's going well.
Fantastic, fantastic, great story. The entrepreneur in me loves hearing similar stories, and it's great how a great idea can be ignored and still flourish. Congratulations on all that, and recognizing that. So you got these 100 clients, or almost 100 financial clients. Tell me, what are the three biggest challenges they face in terms of training? What do you think that is in the industry right now? Start at the
Well,
top there.
I'll start with the very beginning of the process for a financial institution. So turnover is high at FIs, particularly when you have contact centers. Turnover is always high in contact centers, but that's high generally speaking within frontline staff and so forth. So there's this constant need to onboard new staff. And that from the time that a FI makes the decision that they need to hire someone to the point that they have someone who's productive is months. And that is a major challenge. So it's the recruiting aspect is the first piece, but once you've got them and they've signed, then it's getting them trained. And boy, the training is extensive. You think of it, you have to understand the digital capabilities. You have to understand all the products and services that they offer. You have to understand the compliance stuff, because they're a heavily regulated industry that has obligations to examiners. And then, throw in all the diversity and inclusion, financial wellness, all that kind of stuff. It's a big job. So the first piece that gets tackled with LemonadeLXP is this new staff onboarding. And for some of our customers, we've been able to shrink that by 50% or more. So get them actually productive 50% faster. So that's the first big one. The next one is financial institutions are in an interesting position. Particularly the community banks and credit unions, they're very community focused. They do a lot of good things for their community. They're very attached to their community. And so they have been really predominantly a brick and mortar business all these years because they thrive on relationships. But what's changing is technology is changing how people bank, and very quickly. Banks are being forced to become tech companies, but they're really service companies, but they have to be tech. And the reason they have to be is that consumers want to do transactional stuff through digital channels. We'll go into branch, but that we want advisory stuff for. So the challenge that presents two challenges to the FI as they try to become a digital business or a technology company. They have to drive fluency amongst their entire staff on the new tech they're rolling out, and they're constantly rolling out new tech. So that never ends, because even if you stay with your same core provider or digital banking provider, they update the software. They try to improve the UX, and then your staff has to understand how to use it. So Lemonade gives you tools to very, very quickly solve that problem and educate staff and drive fluency. And then, of course, support the customers as the tech changes as well. So that's a big piece. The next piece is, as the branches become more advisory, there is this need to broaden the skill set of your front line, turn them into universal tellers or universal bankers who can talk about more things than just how to deposit a check or how to pay a bill. They need to understand a broad spectrum of products and services to help solve those customer problems. If a customer isn't coming in to deposit a check anymore, they might be coming in to say, I'm thinking of buying a new house, or I need to get a car loan, or I'm trying to understand what to do with my 401k. And so, not to say that tellers are going to take them all the way through that process, but they need to be able to talk about it intelligently, connect this person with the right person, or help them if they can. So that's a broad spectrum of training that has to be handled. The challenge they have is often with their traditional LMS, the learning experience is not all that engaging. And staff have an aversion to the LMS because they associate it with the dreadful compliance training they have to take every year.
Hmm.
So Lemonade is great because it morphs it into an interactive game-based experience, and participation is not hard to drive. In fact, we get about an 86% voluntary participation rate. So, bit of a long-winded answer, but new staff onboarding, and then skill and knowledge development amongst frontline staff is a huge one. And then the last piece, customer education. So our Digital Academy product, which is a customer education portal, I mentioned you can put your tech walkthroughs to teach people how to use your tech, but you can also export game-based learning to it for things like anti-fraud, for cybersecurity, for financial wellness, for financial literacy. These are things financial institutions are heavily invested in, not just like partly protecting themselves against fraud and protecting customers against fraud, but also for CRA credits, Community Reinvestment Act, where they're trying to educate folks on financial wellness and financial literacy. And that's part of the bank's connection and commitment to the community. So those are three areas that we see very common use cases for Lemonade. Of course, there's tons more compliance training, soft skill training, sales training. They're using it for all sorts of things. We built it for digital, but of course, customers look at it and go, "Hey, we can use it for this, this, and this," and so that's what's happened.
Wow, cool. Cool. So tell me this, what about, each of these financial institutions, how much of this content is common from financial institution to financial institution? Is there a way that you help leverage them, get them to the 80%, or does each financial institution have to basically develop this content? How does that work?
Yeah. So when an FI becomes a Lemonade customer, within 48 hours, they have their instance live and they have authoring tools to create content. And that was in the early days, that was a bit of a challenge. Sometimes our customers would have trouble. They were understaffed and it was difficult to get the content already. Some of them even launched one module, put it out there. And of course, staff ate it up because it's game-based and it's fun. And then by the end of the week, staff were like, when do I get more training? And then they would be under the gun. So to address that problem they had, we built what we called the Content Exchange. And it is basically a repository, a library of bank-specific training content, even more than bank-specific. It's got cybersecurity. It's got all sorts of stuff that goes beyond banking. But we have a small team of authors who help our customers when needed. And when they're not busy, they invest in content for our Content Exchange, which our customers can then go and download into their instance and use as is, or they can tweak it for their own financial institution.
Wow.
And that's been really useful for our FI customers. In fact, our FI customers can also publish content to the Content Exchange. So if they write a piece of content and they're happy to share it, it might be more likely to happen in credit unions where they're not competitive. They might put it up in the Content Exchange to share with other customers, which is kind of cool.
How would you go? What would be the process? Not the process. What would be an example of customizing that content at an FI,
Sure.
at a local FI? What's that mean?
So imagine there's a sales training course. Or even better, there's a universal teller course, and it's got a section on mortgage. But I want to make sure that I inject a mortgage information specific to how we do mortgages and the particular products we offer. When I download that mortgage course, I can go and look at the product piece and say, oh, I actually want to tweak these products to reflect mine. So that kind of thing can be done. Now, our new Insight AI tool makes that even easier. So if you have content source material. So let's say I uploaded all the information about my mortgage offering, and I uploaded KYP and KYC, and know your product and know your customer regulations. I could then ask Insight AI to author a course that teaches our staff not just about our mortgages, but how to position them to customers in a way that's KYP and KYC compliant. And it will
Wow.
author that content. It's crazy. So that job just became much easier for creating, because with Insight AI, all you do is you upload your source material to the AI tool, and then it synthesizes all the information. And then when you prompt it to write training, like if I want it to write training on cybersecurity, it will read every document in the database about cybersecurity. It will consolidate that into one piece of knowledge and write courseware based on it.
Like what kind of courseware? Like,
Oh gosh, a whole bunch of different types of modules. You've got game-based learning, you've got role play scenarios, you got text-based content. You can even take your text-based content and put it into a third-party solution like Synthesia and create an AI-based video. Like it's really rich. You've got a lot of different content options.
wow, cool. Tell me about gamification. You dropped that term now 15 times in this interview. What's that mean? Spell that out for us.
So we make a very clear distinction between gamification and game-based learning.
Uh,
What happened was this. We were the guys doing this game-based stuff. And then gamification, the word got invented somewhere, I think probably around 2005, 2006, if I recall.
that Dr. Carl Kopp.
Yeah, after that happened, there came a lot of what I would call imposters. And those are folks that tacked leaderboards and badges onto every experience and called it gamified. Around the office, we called that lamification. Because, if you have me, so here's the difference. So in lamification, we had our original source material was a PDF and somebody had to read it and tick a box. Well, now what we do to gamify it is we give them a point every time they read it, or a badge. And then we have a leaderboard of who read the most PDFs. Well, here's the deal. That learning experience still sucks. Nobody wants to read that PDF. It's TLDR. It's not aligned with how people learn in the real world. But because it's gamified, people are like, "Oh, this is really going to work." Well, it works the first time, but then people eventually realize, "I don't care about the points, I don't care about the badges, and I don't care about the leaderboard. This sucks." So instead, what game-based learning is taking that PDF and morphing its content into a game so that people learn through play. And that's the difference, and that's what we've been doing all these years, is more game-based learning as opposed to gamification. Lemonade has gamification things tacked on, but the learning itself is a game. And I think that's the big difference.
What are examples of game-based learning then? What bring that to life for
Um,
us?
like, for example, if let's say you had your PDF long form content, somebody has to read it, tick a box. Well, instead, what we have an engine that will nest mistakes into that long form content. So you have to read it and correct the mistakes, and you're rated on how well you do it. Um, and so it's not just, you can't just gloss over it and tick a box. You have to read it, understand it, and correct it and sort of solve the puzzle. And when you learn that way, it's kind of fun. You're like, because you're trying to figure out where are these mistakes, and you actually pay more attention. So that's one example. Another example is you can take your source material. Let's say you're talking about the value propositions of a product. You can put that into Insight AI, and it will generate a crossword puzzle that will have all the long form. It might give you an example of fast and easy payments, and the crossword word is going to be Zelle, which is the payment solution that my bank is using. Like, it will create that puzzle that connects dots for people and make it fun for people to learn, instead of just saying, learn that Zelle is a fast and easy payments. So there's lots of different. We have I don't know the number now because we've added some new modules, but a ton of game-based learning modules that you can author with Insight AI.
Wow, great, cool. So what about the content in terms of the different audience groups? Do banks produce the same content, and maybe with this AI, it's much easier? Is it the same content that goes out to partners, customers, and employees, or do you find that they have to really tweak that content for the
Yeah.
separate audiences. How does that play out in reality?
There's a distinction there. So Lemonade gives you the ability to choose which distribution channel you use for content you create. So if you create it with Inside AI, you can say, I want to put this in the learning experience platform for staff, or I want to put it in the customer education platform. Um, Usually, as you would imagine, there's a lot of internal training that they don't want to be customer facing. And then there might be some training that can be used on both sides. Financial literacy is a great example.
Mm,
And then there's some training that would only be really valuable for a customer side. And so Lemonade gives you the ability, the flexibility to say, I want to put on and distribute this content through that. And what we see is that where there's that's sort of top level segmentation of content, but then within a bank, you might have different groups that you want to take different training. So there's grouping functionality that allows you to designate specific groups for specific training. There's even a certifications module in there so that I can say, even of this group, my frontline staff, I want to make sure my advisors are certified on, investment theses or whatever. So you have the ability to target specific audiences with specific content. You can then group those audiences, and then you can certify subsections or entire sections of that audience.
mm. And then from an audience and an internal standpoint, you already have those mappings broke up for like tellers or loan officers and things like that. Do you create learning paths for them?
We
We package
we
them
we
or?
have the ability to do so, but
Mm,
what we have is an AD sync that allows you um, um, to synchronize your Active Directory with Lemonade, provided you're using, I don't know all the technological ins and outs, but it doesn't support every AD on the planet. There's, an AD that it supports that majority of our customers use. It's a little bit above my understanding because it's kind of our CTO has mapped all that out, but you can import your relationships and to group out people.
hmm. One of the big challenges of financial institutions is that compliance training that's required by a variety of, I guess, governing bodies. Um, and then keeping that up to date has been a nightmare as regulations change on a regular basis. And you guys have approached a solution to that. Tell us about that, how you
Yeah, so
help
with Inside
streamline.
AI, what you can do is you can actually download the the actual regulations and policies and procedures, so forth. So you get those documents, and we're actually building an integration where we will get automatic updates when those regulations change.
Cool.
So you put those into Inside AI, and then you can marry them with your internal policies, and it will automatically generate your compliance training. And it'll have your compliance training with a slant on what your particular risk tolerances is and how you interpret those regulations. Then what's super cool is when you change a policy or the regulation changes, you update it in Inside AI and it alerts the course author and says your training's out of date. Please go regenerate it. And you don't have to go redo all the work. All you have to do is click a button and it regenerates, reauthors everything. You just gotta review it and make sure you agree. So it's, where right now to update compliance training might take months. The regulation comes out, then you got to create the content, then you got to review it, then you got to get it out. You can actually do that in minutes and be much more current than you ever could be before on compliance related things and other related things. Like you can use that for product,
Mm.
your products changes or your service changes. How long would it take normally to get that content created and get the staff trained? Well, now you can update that content in a matter of minutes and roll that training out next day. So,
Wow, outstanding. So if you follow Talented Learning and everybody that's on the call here does, we love to talk about measurement. So what are the metrics here that you're delivering for your customers that they're using to invest more and make it easier for you to sell more across the industry? What are
sure.
the metrics?
Yeah. So I like to say that there's kind of like engagement and participation metrics, and then there's impact measurements, right? And so on engagement and participation, 86% voluntary participation rate. Um, people uh, log in regularly to take courses and take modules. And because it's micro learning, you see a lot of people logging in day in, day out to take a short bit of training. We also see customers using it because it's short and easy, using it in preparation for meetings. So yeah, someone's coming in to meet about a mortgage. We'll have customers whose staff go and actually take a reminder course right before the person comes in, sort of in the flow of work. So participation and engagement is very high, but those metrics, those are sort of lipstick metrics, you know. But the where the rubber hits the road, the impact. I mentioned being able to onboard staff faster, as much as 50% in some cases. It's not only that, it's reducing the cost of bringing all these folks to a central location for instructor-led training, which is how often it was done before. It's also the ability to do refresher training very quickly once a year if you set it up as certifications. So shrinking that time to productivity has a huge impact on operational efficiencies for the FI. Insight AI. Early days, because we've only rolled it out in November, and we've had a flood of customers for it. But you know, some are saying they're able to accelerate course authoring by as much as, or reduce it by as much as 90%. So just a huge cost savings there. We have a number of customers who use this for contact center training. And one of our use cases, they've been able to reduce attrition by 56% through better trained and better supported agents. They've also been able to reduce call volumes, talk times, first call resolution, all those types of things. So it really depends on the use case. But another thing we saw, 5x lift in certifications of frontline staff using Lemonade. So I think we're delivering a very compelling learning experience, which is the first part of the challenge, making learning fun and making it effective. And those are leading to real business impact. And with Insight AI now, the business case for the CFO is very strong, because right now, CFOs are looking to clean up their P&L, particularly reduce their tech stack costs. And when they look at the line items, they're looking at single use or niche softwares and thinking we kind of want to get rid of those. Well, with LemonadeLXP, and now that we've rolled out the compliance offering as well as Insight AI, for a lot of mid-sized, smaller banks, you don't need an LMS anymore. You don't need to buy compliance training. We also have a chat functionality that allows you to search the database, so you can replace your chat bot. You don't need tools like WalkMe and so forth because of our digital academy. And you can shrink all of the time it requires to create content. In some cases, eliminate that through our content exchange. So we're helping them cull 5, 6, 7 things off the 5, 6, 7 line items off that P&L, and replace it with one line item that's cheaper than the first one they got rid of. So I think the business case is very, very strong for us these days.
Wow, that's great, John. We're out of time. These conversations go so quickly, especially this one. But we got to finish up real quickly on the advice question. So now these financial institutions, say you're one of the ones that's hacking away with an LMS and updating your content the old-fashioned way. Where's the best place to start this conversation inside of one of those financial institutions? Does it have to start at the top, at that CFO level that you're talking about, or is this a grassroots effort to get them to realize that there's a better way for digital adoption?
Depends on the size of the FI. The big guys will typically be talking to operations, digital, branch, those guys, contact center a little bit. As we go down market, we go up in the org chart. So, you know, in a small community bank or credit union, we're often talking to the CEO or the COO, or the CDO if there is one of the FI that small. So those conversations can happen, but we typically tend to sell to the business line up high, in up market, and then we tend to sell to the executive down market. And
Wow.
we're starting to see other, being pushed to other verticals. We have a mortgage customer, a wealth customer, a couple insurance customers, and now we're starting to see customers from other verticals. Because Lemonade is industry agnostic. We just focused on FI because we wanted to become experts and solve problems for them. But really, the truth is, Lemonade can be used for anything. In particular, if you sell tech or use tech, it's pretty hard to beat us because of that technology walkthrough and digital academy piece. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Outstanding vertical, expanding, because really the idea is, as you said, it's not limited to financial. The idea of really working extended enterprise and getting all your audiences together, and now, of course, using the power of AI. Well, what's most important here is that it's solving the business challenge, and that's where the best learning always is. Here at Talented Learning and in the world is if you start with the actual business challenges and work backwards to the solutions, then you're getting something that's really targeted. If you're these financial or any organizations and you got to figure this all out, you got to put the LMS in, you got to find out what content, you got to build that, you got to map that to your different users. And, that's what 90% of us do. But I think the future is how much of that can be automated for these different verticals and institutions to allow them to hit these metrics that John was describing faster. And that's where the industry's growing. And it's exciting to hear about how you're leading it, John, and team Lemonade LXP. Thanks very much. John, thanks very much for joining us here today. Listeners, thanks very much for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show. This is just emblematic of extended enterprise and why we started this show all these years ago. And now in our 89th episode. Amazing. So, John, thank you very much. Have a great day. We hope to see you soon on another episode and give us the update of how everything is changing. So thanks again.
Appreciate you having me, John.
Awesome. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show, and we hope to see you on the next. Have a great day, and you can find more of our independent content at talentedlearning.com. And John, your website is?
LemonadeLXP.com.
Easy enough. All right, folks, we'll see you soon. Have a great day.